Hello, everyone, and welcome to Two Show Day. I'm your host, Diana Shabai Booker, and my guest today is the Music Man. He is a music educator and director, a fine musician himself, and I'm not kidding when I say this, the maker of the best peanut butter blossoms in the whole world.
Thank you.
It's Dan Galliher. Hi, Dan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain.
Thank you so much for being here
My
today.
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you. So, like I mentioned, you are a music educator
Yes.
and a music director. So, how did this begin in your life? How'd you get
That's
into music?
a really great question.
Yeah.
I think as a kid, I wanted to teach music way back when, and then for a while after that, I wanted to start a car company, which I know is completely related. And then in high school, I was playing in the wind ensemble, sitting in music theory class, and thinking, this is actually kind of fun. So,
Okay.
So I was 10th grade. I was thinking, okay, maybe I do want to do like music education. And that summer, I was asked to play percussion in the pit orchestra for a youth production of Bye Bye Birdie.
Okay.
Which I'd never been on stage before, unless you count my 6th grade play, which was not anything to write home about, at least from my own performance. Everybody else did awesome, but
Oh man, were you like tree number 2 or something like
not
that?
that far off. It was a spoof on Cinderella, where like
Okay.
the step siblings were actually decent humans.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like I don't even know what part I played, but because I had not been bitten by the theater bug back then.
Okay.
But summer of 10th grade, I played percussion in the Bye Bye Birdie pit. I hit a triangle a few times. I crashed some cymbals and had a great time. The next summer, I was asked back, this time on drum set, for Guys and Dolls.
Okay.
Which by then I realized it was really fun.
Yeah.
And it was cool seeing like how the band side of things could integrate with the acting side of things.
Yeah.
And I stayed involved in music classes in high school, and I realized that I definitely did want to go into music education. So I spent that summer, every day after going in for driver ed in the morning, I would lock myself in the band room and try to teach myself how to play 4-mallet marimba so I could actually get into college.
Okay.
Because if you audition for percussion in music school, you have to play a lot of different things, and some of them I could do better than others.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of cramming to do.
Wow.
And so senior year, I stayed involved. I played in a lot of things. I was in a band at the time with some friends, and then another band, and then I played in the pit for Grease that summer with the same youth theater, and I played in the pit for, I think it was Babes in Arms.
Okay.
I did some auxiliary percussion and some drum set at my school, and it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And then music directing didn't start until freshman year of college that summer, when my friend who had gotten me in the pit gigs with Colony Youth Theater asked me if I would fill in for him as music director when he went out of town for 3 weeks.
Okay.
So they were doing Honk the Musical,
Okay.
which turned out to be my first music directing gig. And
Oh,
I
wow.
learned a lot kind of just by doing, like how to do vocal arrangements, how to teach music in a theatrical setting, you know,
Yeah.
and how to integrate the acting and the singing. And then he came back during Tech Week, so I switched from music director Dan to drummer Dan.
Okay.
So did a little bit of everything, and I realized I was hooked by then.
Yeah. That's
So
amazing.
It was so fun. And then the next year, up in college, they did a production of I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change
Okay.
over at Clarkson University. I went to SUNY Potsdam, so right down the road.
Okay.
It was a student-run production, and they needed a music director, so I was like, well, I'll apply. It's fun.
Yeah.
I got the gig. It was a total blast. And then that summer, I fully music directed for Colony Youth Theater, Seussical.
Okay.
And from there, it just kept going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it got started,
That's
and I haven't
amazing.
stopped.
I know. You are always doing something. You always have a gig. I love that.
Yeah, it's
do you
so
remember,
fun.
Do you remember what your first instrument was?
Probably either a practice pad when I started band in 4th grade on percussion, or piano. When my
Okay.
parents weren't home, I would play the upright piano in the living room, and I was very much into Elton John and Billy Joel. I still am today.
Yeah.
They're two of my biggest influences.
Absolutely.
So I would bang out Elton John and Billy Joel tunes on the piano to the point that I broke the middle C string.
Oh, no.
And I was hoping they wouldn't notice.
It's just middle
Which,
C.
of course, they did notice because it's the most commonly played note on the
course,
piano,
yeah.
probably. And then, like, a couple years later, I broke the G below middle C and then the F below middle C. So basically, the three
like,
most
keeps
commonly
going.
used notes on the piano. Somehow I thought I wouldn't get caught. But I actually took piano lessons very briefly in 5th grade, and then I stopped when I realized I'd rather be playing, like, rock music than stuff in a lesson book.
Sure.
And if my students are listening, don't stop your music lessons.
Right. No.
Because
Practice is
keep going it.
important. Yeah.
Practice makes permanent, you know?
Yeah,
and there's a lot of technique I missed out on because I'm mostly self-taught. So if you put like a Beethoven sonata in front of me, I would struggle a lot more with that than a lot of the other piano players in the area.
Interesting.
Because
Okay.
I'm not a great classical player, but I can do rock pretty well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really love your approach to music direction.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you and I worked together for the first time on Spring Awakening.
It was so much fun.
At SLOC, which was wonderful. And like, sure, like the main job of an MD is to teach the performers the music, right? But I remember very specifically, it was just you and Hannah DiStefano, and you were working on some Venla piece, Whispering or Mama
I
Who
think I
Bore Me
remember
or
that
something
too,
like that. Yeah, we're in the education room.
Yeah.
And I remember like Hannah had done the show before, and she's an incredible vocalist. So
Yes.
like, she knows the music, but you just took this opportunity to be like, so what do you think Venla is going through right now? And
I think
like,
I remember that.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And just being able to like craft the acting within her voice and take her performance from great to excellent.
And she did so well in that.
Yeah.
It was so good.
She's wonderful. And just, I love that approach that not only can you like teach people that don't know the music, teach them the music and be great in it, but be able to just take them to the next level.
I think that came over time for me because like I'm not a trained singer. I was a percussionist first and then piano player. So a lot of what I learned about vocals is just from watching the chorus teachers at the schools I've taught in and watching other music directors.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much just by observing.
Yeah.
But because I'm not so focused on vocal technique, as people with a vocal background might be, I think more about like more big picture things like how does the music serve the story?
Yeah.
Why does this note exist on this word in this spot? Why is this word higher pitched than this other word? What is the composer trying to accomplish through the music, and how can you use it to better sell the story? Because that's the whole point, because it's not a concert, it's a musical.
Yeah.
So I love stuff like that, and it was so fun like digging into that song and like finding out what made it tick, and how it enhanced the story and made it more believable. It was so fun.
Yeah, wonderful. And that was just that show specifically so full of like different genres too.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, was it fun to play with
It was
the whole
one of the
band?
most fun shows I've ever got to play. And like normally I'm just behind a piano the whole time, where I'm just stick conducting. But this one I played electric guitar in 2 songs.
Oh, very nice. I didn't even know that.
I think it was My Junk was one of them, and then Totally Effed was the other one.
Of course.
Because
yeah.
I think in that show, if I'm remembering correctly, there's at least 2 guitar books, and I had one player covering both books.
Oh, okay.
So there were some times that it really needed 2 guitars more than it needed like a guitar and a piano.
Right.
So also I don't get to play guitar nearly enough, so I'll take any
that
chance I
opportunity.
get.
Absolutely.
Let alone electric guitar. I'm usually on an acoustic when I play. So
oh, sure.
So it was cool to like bust out the power chords and throw a little fuzz on it.
Absolutely.
And so that was really cool. It was a blast to play because, like you say, the score had a little bit of everything. And, and it served the show really, really well because it was so stylistically diverse. Like, it starts off with this like very string-heavy orchestral thing. Then it kicks into like kind of upbeat, fun type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, adjacent to punk rock at some times.
Absolutely.
And then like swing jazz and 12/8 time. Like, I love it. So cool.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
And there's one song, I think, The Word of Your Body, in that show where it's a harpsichord that starts it. So
That's right.
Got like the Baroque influence going on, but then suddenly, like in the chorus, the bass player comes in on something other than like the root note of the chord. Like it's an F chord, F-A-C. And if you're a music theory nerd, it's the root, the third, and the fifth. That's how you build a chord. It's like stacking blocks on each other, essentially. Or drawing a snowman on a musical staff, if you will.
Oh, okay.
Because you do either all spaces or all lines. You just skip every other note. But it was an F major chord of some type. But instead of having the bass player come in on an F, which is more common and it's more stable, bass player not only did not come in until beat 3 of that measure, but came in on an A, which is the halfway point up the chord.
Okay.
And it's less stable by nature because it wants to resolve somewhere. Right. And the song where Venla and Melchior are singing, and they're in a moment of uncertainty.
I was going to say, that's like exactly where they are.
Yes,
That's the moment where they're like, are we a thing?
So
and
when the bass player comes in, like that's the lowest sound you hear in the orchestration, and it's not on the root of the chord. It's unstable by nature.
Yeah.
And it just hits a certain way, and it adds to that like instability. And then it walks down a little bit, so it goes to the next chord. Eventually, it's on the 7th of a chord because I'm a giant nerd, and I've noticed things like that. But the bass is like walking down one half step at a time chromatically, and the chords are shifting above it. It's just perfect musical illustration. And I've always loved that moment in the show, even before I MD'd it.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Did you know about that moment in the music?
I
before
did,
you
because like
okay.
whenever I heard it, I was like, wow, this is cool. But I didn't know like all the surrounding like character stuff as deeply until I dug into it.
Until you start working on it.
And then when I heard our pit band playing it, like I was very fortunate with the pit in that show. Like the players were outstanding.
Absolutely. Great pit.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So fun.
Yeah. Okay. brief detour. I want to
Yeah.
briefly talk about Dave Matthews.
Yes, please.
Because as anyone who is a regular listener of this podcast knows, my mother loves Dave Matthews.
That's awesome.
She has a 41 tattoo. She's a fire
Amazing.
dancer
Love
tattoo.
it.
Yeah. So you are also a big Dave Matthews fan.
Very much so.
Kevin, our director, also has a Dave Matthews sticker on his
Wonderful.
water bottle. We're
Amazing.
among friends
Love it.
today. So what about that music draws you to it?
So much.
Yeah.
So I first got into D&B in around 2000. My
Okay.
cousin was very much into alternative rock of all types from the 90s, so I
Mm-hmm.
was introduced to a lot of stuff by him. He played some stuff. I liked it, so my grandmother bought me a copy of Under the Table and Dreaming, which is their first big label release
Yep.
from 1994. I played it on repeat, and then a month later I bought Before These Crowded Streets, which was their third album, and honestly probably my favorite. I wrote a paper on it in college
really?
about the production values
Oh
and how
my
like
God.
start to finish that album it tells a story. You
Yeah.
know, it welcomes you in at the beginning and then it sends you off at the end, and there's like little bits of nerdy awesomeness in there that are just so cool.
Yeah.
And nothing is wasted.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll talk more about later with the musical theater
Yes.
things, because it's not that different. And then I saw them 2001 at SPAC in the summer, and it was a great show. I recently found on YouTube like the full video of that show.
Oh,
And it
wow.
took me back.
That's so cool.
One of the best versions of Ants Marching I've ever heard.
Okay.
But
2001, it's back.
And then
Got it.
40-something shows later, like I
Yeah.
still dig them for so many reasons.
I know.
And I actually saw them at Bethel Woods
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. It was the opening show of the tour, and I
Oh.
drove down, saw the show. It was amazing. It was also 40-something degrees on the lawn, and
no.
I forgot to bring my warm clothing because I went to school in Potsdam, and I didn't learn that like it gets cold sometimes.
Right.
So I camped out on the campgrounds, which
Okay.
I'd never done before, but
Yeah.
I went on Amazon. I bought like a mattress for the back of my car. Like if I flopped the back
Oh,
seats down,
sure.
I could sleep
Yeah.
there. So I camped out in the back of the car, which was great until the mattress deflated
Oh,
at
no.
3 a.m. And if I was going to refill the mattress, I had to start the car, which would have blinded everyone else with the
Oh,
headlights.
yeah.
So yeah, my old man back did not like that too much, but still worth it. It was a great show, and the community's great.
Yeah.
Like, Dave fans are great people.
Absolutely.
But the songwriting is honest.
Yeah.
Like Dave is almost always telling a story, and it's about something that needs to be told, you know,
Yeah.
nearly all the time. And the music supports the story, you know, like he plays these really interesting voicings on the guitar, like how he shapes the chords.
Right.
Very non-traditional. If my hands could stretch as long as his, I could probably
Oh
replicate
man,
them.
just watching him.
Yeah.
Obviously don't know how to play
mean,
guitar, but just he looks so
Going
contorted.
from
Yeah.
the second fret to the sixth fret and like not even breaking a sweat doing it. It's not fair.
Right.
But he writes about stuff that needs to be written about. He tells it honestly, but he still makes it like a love fest, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's celebratory and forward looking and like makes people think at the same time. There's a song he has called Don't Drink the Water,
Great
which
song.
it's about colonization, but from the perspective of the colonizers. And
Yeah.
by telling it from the point of view of the villain, you know, it really makes you think. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I remember my first year teaching in the public schools. I did a lesson on that song, connecting the music to the lyrics, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And he has several others like that as well. And he also uses his platform in a way I think a lot of people should. You know, he has a big audience, and he talks about what needs to be talked about and wakes people up to things they need to be woken up to.
Yeah.
You know, I noticed it during the pandemic, like mask wearing, keeping people safe. He used his platform positively. You know, and since then, a lot of ways too. And I always appreciate that. Like
Yeah.
when people who have a platform use it like in a constructive way to make things
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And, but just the music is so catchy. The musicianship is absurd. Like their drummer is in his late 60s and he still plays like with such insane energy
know.
while singing harmony and chewing bubble gum. Like, and he can be in two different time signatures like with each hand. Like it's not fair.
Yeah.
And he learned to play, I think, by watching on a TV screen. You know, if you watch him play, he plays a right-handed drum set, but he doesn't cross his right hand over his left hand. So he plays like half and half because he was imitating a mirror image on a TV.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and because of that, he can play a lot of interesting patterns that
Yeah.
would be harder to play if you're playing traditionally. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And his saxophone player can play an alto sax and a tenor sax at the same
At
time.
the same time, yes.
Yep.
I played saxophone very
Nice.
briefly in high school, and yeah, I remember that with
Yeah.
the two at the same
It's
time.
insane, yeah. And because
amazing.
the instruments are different size, one of them sounds a fourth away from the other. So it sounds like a power chord in a guitar if you play the same notes on on both horns. You know, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
And just the energy is amazing, and it's not like anything else out there
Yeah.
in any aspect. And it's cool. Like, and honestly, there's a nostalgia factor too. Like when I go to SPAC in the summer, even if somebody spills like a cheap college beer on my new shoes on the lawn, like it's still great. I'm still glad to be there because
Right.
it takes me back to like, you know, one of the most fun parts of every summer since, honestly, 2001.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're
So
very
cool.
lucky in this area if you are a
Yes.
Dave fan, because there are so many opportunities to see them, right?
Absolutely.
They're at SPAC every year, of course, but yeah, if you drive a few hours,
Yeah.
you can hit so many
Yeah,
different concerts.
and they play
yeah.
the Garden like almost every winter since like I
That's
think
right.
21 or 22. And
Yeah.
and they usually bring special guests out at those shows. Like they had some of the
Yes.
late night TV show musicians guesting
Oh,
with them. I think it
really?
was 2 years ago because they're in
Okay.
town anyway. You know,
Sure.
Bella
yeah.
Fleck showed up last year with his banjo, which
Oh,
was
very cool.
insane. Yeah,
I
it
love
was so
that.
cool.
I like seeing shows at Madison Square Garden too.
Me
I
too.
saw the Killers there a couple years ago.
Did they kill it?
They did kill it.
That's awesome.
And they brought out Bruce Springsteen for the encore.
Oh,
it
that's
was like,
amazing.
whoa.
That's so
you,
cool.
You never know when you go see shows in the city who's in
no,
town,
it's
right?
absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
And
but
then,
yeah.
like I stayed like in the Penn Station area too, and running into
sure.
other Dave fans in the hotel bar. You know,
Yeah.
before or after the show. That was awesome.
Yeah, Dave fans are the most welcoming and
Yeah.
like will always talk to you like
Yes,
at your seats and
absolutely.
you make friends and it's a
And
wonderful
actually,
experience.
at the Bethel Woods show, I ran into a former student of mine from 2 years
No
ago
way.
randomly. Yep. Yeah, such a small world.
Yeah, I love that.
So cool.
Yeah. So, sliding into that, let's
Yeah.
talk about SLOC Sings.
Yes.
So we're about to have SLOC Sings the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
which this is coming out on the 14th. So in a week, it'll be SLOC Sings the 90s night.
Yep.
So this is its fourth iteration of SLOC
Yes.
Sings. So how did this start?
Good question. So, I mean, technically it's the fifth, but
fifth, excuse
but
me.
it wasn't called SLOC Sings when the first one happened. So
Oh, okay.
technically, you're right. It's the fourth. So it's on June 21st. First of all,
Yes.
so it started in 2021. Actually, the brainchild started before that. I was at 54 Below in New York City, which is
Mm-hmm.
a Broadway nightclub, and they have a series called 54 Sings.
Okay.
And they do like whole nights targeted to certain artists or genres or whatever. And I saw a Billy Joel one, and I saw a few others, and it was very cool, you know,
Yeah.
kind of to hear this music that had been done one way adapted a different way,
Yeah.
and in a different setting, and exposing people who might not normally listen to that type of music to that type of music. So in 2021, everything was shut down and theaters were struggling. So I was like, okay, I'd been doing this Tuesday Night Tunes series out of my basement. Like
Okay.
every Tuesday at 8 o'clock, I would pour a shot of Crown Royal, throw some rocks in there, go down to my baby grand in the basement and just play tunes for an hour. And I'd
Yeah.
live stream it on Facebook. People would watch it. They'd put requests in on the comment stream. And it was fun. It was a way to have community without being in the same space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I made a point of like during the first year, I don't think I repeated a single song.
Okay.
Which was a cool challenge for me. It forced me to learn new stuff. But
Yeah.
but I was thinking, okay, why don't I do this at SLOC and like say, if you want to request a song, do so. Donate something to SLOC while you're at it. So I went into SLOC by myself with a mask on and went to the piano in the cabaret room in April 2021. Live streamed out of there on the SLOC channel and just played tunes for 2 hours.
Oh,
People
nice.
donated to SLOC, and it was a blast. And then the next year, I was thinking, there's a lot of songs I want to play selfishly. A lot of those songs require a really big band to like
Yeah.
do in their full glory.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of really awesome musicians and singers through SLOC largely, and like how cool would it be to just do that?
Yeah.
So I pitched the idea to I think one of the people who was on the board at the time. I forget exactly who it was, but either way, June 2022, I did a show at SLOC. It was called An Evening with Dan and Friends. Had about 10 singers, I think, rotating in and out who had all done stuff at SLOC. I had a band of about 8 people, I think. It was a piano, guitar, bass, drums, plus I think a sax, trumpet, electric violin, and trombone.
Okay.
And we did a whole variety of stuff. We did like Jason Robert Brown solo tunes. We did some musical theater. We did a Sondheim medley as part of that, sung by Heather Liz Maglino. And
Very nice.
it was a ton of fun to arrange that and put it together. And we did the finale from Bandstand, sung by Christine Maglino, which was also
okay.
a blast because we had the horn players to pull it off.
Yeah.
And we also did like some Elton John, some Billy Joel. I think I threw a Dave Matthews song on there. I think we did Gray Street that night because we had a full horn section.
nice.
And again, how can I not?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was the first one.
Okay.
It raised a lot of money. Then I was thinking the next year, Elton John's retiring from touring, and he was probably the reason I started playing piano. And he dabbled in musical theater.
Yeah.
And his stuff lends itself to like theatrical voices.
Yes,
really
he's very
nicely.
theatrical. Yeah.
So I figured, okay, let's do it. So I pitched the idea. I think it was to Johnny Maglino and his wife Heather, and they were all about it. And so we put it together. We decided we'd do like a silent auction as part of it. Got more singers than the last one. I think it was like probably 10 to 15 singers. The band grew to about like 11 people, I think.
Okay.
plus or minus. And we just played Elton John songs all night. We opened with Funeral for a Friend, which is his instrumental rebuttal to critics who were accusing him of being a simple 4-chord rocker in the early 70s. So he wrote that and did this very complex synthesized intro and then took it through like a bunch of different key signatures in a matter of 5 minutes, and a bunch of different styles. And like, it's, if you ever have the chance, I'm going to nerd out for a second.
Absolutely, please.
I consider myself a bit of an audiophile, like where when I buy a new car, the sound system quality is a very big criteria for me.
Sure. Okay.
So a few years ago, I had an Acura TL sedan, and it had a DVD audio player in it, which like that's kind of a dead technology now because it never really caught on. But what was cool about that was I found Elton John's Yellow Brick Road album on DVD audio mixed in 5.1 surround sound.
Oh, wow.
So I bought it, of course. I put it on in the car, and listening to Funeral for a Friend with like various synthesizers coming at me from the back right side of the car, separated from everything else in the mix. It was a religious experience.
That is so cool. That
it was so
you found
like
the sound in the car.
Yes. Like I've heard that song a million times, like on all kinds of sound systems since I was a kid. That's one of the first songs I banged out on the piano. That's probably what broke middle C on that piano, you know, way back when. But I listened to it in the car, and it was so cool hearing that. But anyway, I don't know how I got in that tangent, but we opened the show with that song.
Great.
And normally he goes into another song called Love Lies Bleeding, which is like how he did it on the album and how he does it live. But I figured I'd have a little fun. So we did Funeral for a Friend. When the instrumental bit ends, it's about to go into the next song. We instead went into I'm Still Standing.
Very nice.
And Emily Argento, who's like well known around SLOC, came out and sang the living you know what out of that song. And that's how the show opened. And then we closed it with your song, and then we did Elton's cover of Pinball Wizard by The Who to wrap it up as an encore number. And then my voice gave out for like a while after that, because trying to hit high G's with the beginning of a cold is not smart.
Oh, no.
But it was so much fun. Like hearing those songs like with like the full band, theatrical voices, and like I also had a lot of fun arranging the parts for the band. Because like we put some twists on some of the songs. Like Kelly Sankiewicz sang Yellow Brick Road with just piano and vocal in the style of Sarah Bareilles' arrangement, which was a nice little twist. And then I took some requests throughout the night too, which was a lot of fun too, because like I like spontaneity with that. So that was the first like official SLOC Sings, even though it was the second show of that nature. Third one if you count the live streamed one.
Got it.
We did Billy Joel next because he was also retiring from touring like the next summer. So that was December 2023. The band grew to 13 people. The cast grew to about 20. And show sold out.
That was my first one. My first SLOC Sings.
It was so fun.
So good.
Yes, such a blast. And I realized like writing for a 6-person horn section plus electric violin is a lot different than writing for a 4-person horn section. Because then you oftentimes have the same like horn lines being like different octaves away from each other. So the question is, what doubles what is an octave apart from what harmonizes with what, and like how does it all tie into the vocals? And then how do I integrate like a keyboard 2-part or a second guitar part, like to support it further. And it was so cool. So cool. So that was Billy Joel. Last fall we did classic rock, and doing 3 decades is a lot different than doing an artist. So narrowing down 3 decades worth of music into a 2-hour show was extremely difficult. So, but it was so fun. You know? I'm trying to think like what some highlights were. I know we did. We started off. The second song was we started with Sledgehammer. Which I've always loved. I heard Dave cover it, and I knew it was, I think, Peter Gabriel, right? Originally.
Peter Gabriel,
And the horn parts on that are just so cool. So, open with that. Then we did Can't Take My Eyes Off of You by the Four Seasons. Josh DeMarco sang that.
Right,
and because that was, technically might not have been classic rock. However, it laid the groundwork for classic rock. So it set it up. And we kind of went through the 3 decades and hit a little bit of everything. And I think we closed it with Stairway to Heaven. Stairway to Heaven, and then I think Africa. We had all 20 singers kind of lining the aisles in surround sound, and the Rains got blessed.
Absolutely, they did.
So 60s, 70s, and 80s, what's next? The 90s.
Here we are.
And here we are. And we've been in rehearsals for a couple weeks now. They've been going amazingly well. Like we have about 30 plus singers on this one.
Wow.
And because, I mean, when you have boy bands and you have, like, Britney Spears and TLC and Spice Girls and, like, small vocal ensembles going on, you need a lot of really strong voices. I'm fortunate to have them. And so we're visiting a little bit of everything in the 90s, which very musically diverse decade. So we have some grunge, we have some alternative rock, we have some punk rock. We have some jam rock. There is some Dave Matthews Band in there. And,
of course.
And I'm very excited about that tune, personally. I'm not going to tell you what it is because...
no.
Yeah.
Part of the greatness of these SLOC Sings is you don't know what's coming
and
next.
I love that. I love the
so
anticipation of like what's going to come next.
Yeah.
And, like, some of the songs we're mashing up, like doing a couple verses and choruses of a song, then going into another song, and then kind of like... we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah.
So there's some fun stuff thrown in there, and there'll probably be like some type of special surprise at the end. Again, I won't say too much right now, but the band is 13 people. The cast, like I said, is about 30 to 35, and it's going to be a blast.
Yes, I can't wait.
And there's also a silent auction as part of it with like 90s themed stuff. So
fun.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
So I wanted to ask you about. With SLOC Sings, how do you pick who sings what?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I'll use our friend Hannah again as an example. For SLOC Sings Classic Rock, she sang Chicago's 25 or 6 to 4, which she just slayed.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think she would have ever picked that for herself.
Right. So basically,
go?
like, I love like pairing voices to songs. So I think about a lot of things. Like, Hannah has an amazing voice and very versatile, and basically has this crazy wide vocal range, which I learned at Spring Awakening auditions. Yeah. And it all sounds effortless and fantastic.
Absolutely.
So Chicago. I think it was originally sung by a male voice, but a tenor male voice. So it goes way down here, up to way up here, and it stays up there for a while. Yeah. But it's a wide range, and she can sing it strong all the way through. So that was my kind of big consideration. And there's a big horn section on that song too. Yeah. So it was cool, like hearing the call and response between the vocals and the horns and whatnot. But so I think about vocal range. I think about like where people are most comfortable stylistically, and like what they connect most with, like song-wise too, like thematically, or if they have a favorite artist, or if they have something they really like singing. Because I'm a big believer in like, how can you sing passionately about something if you don't like it? And as a school band director, like when NYSSMA Solo Fest time rolls around and students are working on the same thing for 3 months, if they don't like it, like they're not going to do it, you know, or they're not going to have the passion in it. So it has to be something people are excited to sing. Yeah. So I consider that. I consider like vocally, like if it's a small ensemble, like which voices blend well with each other, and things like that, you know. Yeah, and who brings certain energy like to the song, and like if it's a song that has an acting component, who can like do that justice. And make it believable, or put their own twist on it. Yeah. Do the performers come first, or do the songs come first? That's a great question as well, and the answer shifts on that. So with Elton John and Billy Joel, like I know their discography pretty well. So I had an idea of which songs I wanted, but I also had the flexibility of like, if I knew someone would sing something well and I had them involved in the show, and the song wasn't originally on the list, I could throw it in and it would still fit the theme. And I had people for both shows suggest songs that like I hadn't thought of, or maybe didn't know, like some deep cuts. Which was awesome for me because I got to dig into it, you know. Like for Billy Joel, we did Why Would I Worry from like Oliver and Company, because Billy Joel, I think he was the Artful Dodger, the voice of that in the movie. So we threw that in there, and that was a lot of fun to put together. And then Brittany Glenn, actually, good friend of mine, sang "Sleeping with the Television On," which is a lesser known Billy Joel song, but she requested it, so we put it in, and she sang the you know what out of it. Absolutely, yeah. So with a decades themed one like classic rock, that's a little trickier because when people think classic rock, there's songs that always come to mind, like "Stairway to Heaven," like "Sweet Child of Mine," etc. You know, and if a deep cut goes in, it might have to displace something that's better known. So I had to make sure I was hitting all the like the true hits, so to speak. So that people who just came in who maybe don't know SLOC would feel like they're getting their money's worth and hearing what they want to hear. You know, and even if it's selfishly not something I would enjoy playing as much as like a deep cut. So it was a balancing act. Gotcha. And for the 90s, there's so much in there. So I knew there were songs I wanted on there, so I started with a list of about 50-something. Johnny Maglino, president of SLOC, he has a lot of DJ experience, so he knows like what music makes people tick very well. So he was very helpful. He sent me a list of like 50-plus songs. And I was in Florida in February. I went down for a week vacation, and I remember in the afternoon, I went to the theme parks in the morning, you know, Disney parks, which was a lot of fun. So I would come back to the hotel in the afternoon and just like put the headphones in, listen through the songs on the list, and I'd be like, okay, how long is this song? Does it use a horn section? How many singers would I need to do it well? How does it fit in with the other stuff that I'm considering? Is it a hit? Is it a crowd pleaser? Is it something that I enjoy playing? Like I ranked every song on a scale of 1 to 5 as far as enjoyability. And then I went through the list. I sorted it by rank and took all the 5s and 4.5s, put them near the top. That was my first draft.
Okay.
And I started thinking, okay, which singers could sing these songs really well? And like, what's my like voice type ratio? Like, how many sopranos, altos, tenors, baritones, basses do I need? Like, how many could I have? How many do I need at a minimum? How much wiggle room is there in between? You know, and then I fine-tuned the list a little bit, and then looked at, okay, what's missing? What subgenres are missing? What's the ballad to rocker ratio? You know, like, what are people going to be excited to listen to for 2.5 hours? You know, does it get boring to play? Does it get boring to listen to? And can I still put in there everything I want? And is it interesting to these instrumentalists who are volunteering their time, some of whom are union musicians? Like, is it worth their time to be playing a bunch of quarter notes over and over? Or should I be giving them something more interesting to make it more worth their while?
Right.
And so all those are considerations. And then a month or two later, I settled on a first draft of a list, tweaked it a little bit as like I heard some additional voices, you know, and there's actually a few people in the show that I haven't really worked that much with before, which I'm thrilled about because like, I'm getting to know them, getting to know their voices, and it's been a lot of fun to put it together. And then to some extent, it's like rehearsal availability. Like, who's around on the same nights? Who can I put in a number together and not drive myself nuts trying to rehearse it? You know? So it's a bunch of puzzle pieces. And so sometimes the singer comes before the song. Like, if I have a singer that I know will like kick butt on a certain song, sometimes the song comes before the singer, you know, and probably a little more the latter on this one. But it kind of fluctuates back and forth on all these. And like when I play bar gigs, same thing. Like I usually have a few friends come up and sing at those, you know. And oftentimes like the singers drive the song choices for that, but it goes either way. So it's a lot of fun. And then selfishly, I like to throw a few songs that I really like playing on it. Which you'll hear in the show.
That's a super interesting process. And as someone that really appreciates a spreadsheet, I love you rank everything.
The number of Google Sheets I have going on for this show and Google Docs. Like for example, like the Spice Girls song we're doing. I'm not going to spoil which one it is, but like there's a Word doc showing who sings what and where. Like boldface is one singer, italicized is another singer, both at the same time is combined. And then there's a notation file showing like how all the instrumentals fit in on it. And then there's a spreadsheet showing like, okay, which horns does the song need? You know, what do I need to do on the song? You know, how long is it? You know, so my Google Drive is very full. Right now.
I love it so much.
And so is the SLOC fundraising Google Drive because I use both of them.
That's wonderful. So come see all of Dan's hard work at SLOC Sings the 90s.
It's going to be fun.
June 21st. Tickets are very affordable. They're $25, I think. $25. There's a silent auction. There's a 50-50. And all kinds of fun.
Full horn section as part of the band. 2 trumpets, 3 saxes of different types, electric violin, 2 guitars, 2 keyboards, bass, drums. And 30 plus singers.
They are so fun. If you know nothing about SLOC, if you don't know anybody, just come buy a ticket. It's a great time.
And you're going to get to hear me tell lame jokes throughout the whole night.
Which is why we're here.
Yes. For example, why did the turkey cross the road?
The turkey? I don't know why.
It was the chicken's day off.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so come to SLOC Sings. It's going to be great. 7:30 start. Silent auction opens at 6:30. And get your tickets ahead of time because Billy Joel sold out, and I wouldn't be shocked with like 50 people involved in the cast plus band. I wouldn't be shocked if this one sells out too. So don't procrastinate. Get your tickets.
Don't wait till the
you
night
won't
of.
regret it.
It's so good.
It'll be really, really cool.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's get into our shows today. So guest goes first.
Okay.
Let's introduce your show.
Okay. So the last 5 years.
The last 5 years? Yeah.
Jason Robert Brown. I think it was the 3rd show he wrote.
Okay.
And it was off Broadway around like the turn of the millennium. After doing, I think, a trial run elsewhere. I think it was Chicago, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
And I first heard this show. Let's time travel back to summer 2006. Actually, I lied. Spring 2006.
Spring, okay.
I was in New York City in Upper West Side at a friend's apartment. A friend who's like one of the most brilliant musicians I know. His name's Ryan Chase. He was actually the person who got me into the youth theater scene way back when and started the whole musical theaters thing. So without him, none of this would be happening.
Amazing.
So I was in his apartment. He had just played piano in an off-Broadway production of Sideshow, which I had gone down to see, and it was great. It was wonderful. Then we went to a great diner afterwards, the Purity Diner, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
Some of the best corned beef hash and fried eggs I've ever had.
I love corned beef hash.
Yes, and I kind of want some right now, but alas. Anyway, so another friend of ours from high school was with us as well. So we wound up back in his apartment, and he showed me the soundtrack to the last 5 years. And I'd never heard of Jason Robert Brown before.
Yeah.
And what fascinated me, among other things, was the fact that there was a kind of a rock band pit. There was piano, acoustic guitar, fretless electric bass, violin, 2 cellos, no drum kit. And I had not before that time successfully heard something in that setting working without a drum, but with like bass and guitar. So my mind was blown. I was like air conducting along with it as I'm listening. There may have been a fermented beverage or two involved as well, but so I was air conducting along, and I was thinking like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I got into like the cast side of it. It's 2 people. Yeah. Jamie and Kathy.
That's right.
They're young 20-somethings in New York City. They're creatives, and they somehow think that like maintaining a long-term monogamous relationship is going to work in your early 20s, like while being creative types in a really big city with a lot going on. Right. And spoiler alert, it doesn't work.
It does not.
So the story is interesting. Like, and I drove home the next day, and I had the CD on repeat in my car, like nonstop. And since then, I love the show. I've music directed it twice.
Wow,
and I want to do it again, but like with a real piano and not a keyboard, because that score it needs it. Yeah. But it was so fun. Actually, I just played a gig at Fort Orange Brewing in Albany last weekend, and one of my guest singers was the person who played Kathy in that production, Lauren Ugalde, the person. And she sang, what did she sing last weekend? She sang, I think, I'm brain farting on that. But either way, she played Kathy and did a darn good job of it way back then. But, so the show chronologically goes 2 different directions. First song is Still Hurting. It's sung by Kathy. It's after Jamie breaks up with her by leaving a note. And it's at the end of the timeline, at the end of the 5 years. Jamie is over and Jamie is gone, and I'm still hurting. Next song, Chick's a Goddess, is Jamie singing from the start of the relationship. They just had their first date. He's head over heels. And that song actually is a replacement for an original song in the show.
Oh, really?
There's a song that was in that song's place called I Could Be in Love with Someone Like You. I think that was in the out-of-town tryout run. That song was released on JRB's Wearing Someone Else's Clothes album from 2005. And that song, I think, was slightly different but served the same purpose as Chick's a Goddess, but something came up and he had to write a new song for the show, I think at the final dress rehearsal of the original out-of-town tryout. So he had to write a song that fit the same structure, fit the same light cues that had already been established. So if you listen to the 2 songs back to back, they're similar. Very similar. Some of the same riffs, some of the same content, but like one of them is more about like him, one of them is more about her. And it's kind of an important distinction. Like one of them was a bit like autobiographical, I think. Like more so than maybe was intended. So as the show goes on, like the timelines go opposite directions. Like they're closing in on each other. Her timeline moves from end to beginning over time. His moves from beginning to end. They meet in the wedding halfway through, the next 10 minutes. The song ends with him giving answers to her questions. He proposes. She accepts. They sing a single pitch in the same octave on the same note. It's an A above middle C. It's the word do, like after saying I do. And then at the end, you hear her asking the questions that he answered at the beginning of the song, further illustrating the timelines. Because at that point already, they're seeing separately. And then her story keeps going towards the beginning. His story keeps going towards the end. At the end, she sings goodbye until tomorrow after an amazing first date. He sings goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
And they're juxtaposed against each other. And it kind of makes it hit home a little harder. Like her heartbreak, his frustration, all the things. And it's powerful. And it's a heavy show to play. Because there's no escaping it, But at the same time, like there's so much in there.
There's so many fun songs in there. Like A Summer in Ohio. Kathy's talking about her summer stock experience.
That's a fun one to play. It's also so very difficult to play because like I feel like the left hand and right hand on the piano like do opposite roles at one point. Like the left hand has to start playing chords while the right hand does like a little violin like when it's being played without a pit orchestra. And it's insane. And it's not fair that JRB is such a good piano player. I was going to ask you, this is our first JRB that we've covered on this show. But I know that you really like him. And he's very piano heavy kind of composer. I think he wanted to be Billy Joel way back when.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. What are what draws you to Jason Robert Brown?
A lot of things. A lot of the same things that draw me to DMB, honestly. So the piano playing for one thing, it's insane. The songwriting, he writes about stuff that needs to be written about. He tells it honestly, and he connects the music to the lyrics and the melodies. So
Sure.
it's very compelling.
Yeah.
And the scores are just great. You know, it's like if Billy Joel wrote a musical, and like because my influence on Billy Joel and Elton John, you know.
Sure. Okay.
So it's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
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 And because I think it's like I said, last 5 years I heard in 2006. I bought the Parade cast album like a year later, and then Songs for a New World shortly thereafter. And I put both of them on repeat in the car incessantly.
Okay. Yeah.
And then anytime he came out with a new show since then, I'd go down and see it. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And then like I
amazing.
started learning some of his songs, and they're not easy to play.
No.
But they're fun.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah. And like if I had actually stuck with piano lessons way back when, I could probably play them a little more accurately and a little better, but maybe the groove or the passion wouldn't be there as much.
Yes. I think that's more important.
I agree,
It's the
especially
groove.
with his stuff, because
Yeah.
he's not a piano player that you read the dots on the page and you replicate.
Right.
You play the groove, and you play it almost like a percussion instrument.
Yeah.
Because you have to, you know?
Yeah. Gotta
But-
feel it for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of why I got as into his stuff as I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why the last 5 years of all the
Okay.
JRB shows? Why do you
Okay.
want to talk about this one?
A few reasons.
Yeah.
It's the first one I heard. It's what got it all started.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes people think.
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy to go into, like, something, or to go into life saying, like, cheating is wrong, and that's an absolute. And I still feel cheating is wrong. I will never stop feeling that way.
Right.
However, my favorite thing, or one of my favorite things about theater as a whole, it casts a mirror on us as humans, you know? And it helps us see the why behind why people do what they do, you know? In all
Just
kinds
like
of
don't drink the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, as we like to say, unforgivable, you know?
Right.
And this show does it brilliantly because of the juxtaposition of the timelines.
Yeah.
Like, over time, like, you can, even if you dislike both characters or one or the other, you can empathize with both very much. Like,
Yeah.
like for me, like, it's interesting because Jamie's career kind of took off at the beginning of the show. He was an up and coming author, you know?
Right.
And Kathy's career didn't exactly take off. You know, she's a struggling actress, you know? And like my music directing career kind of took off very quickly, like in the late 2000s, you know? At times it felt like it was out of control a little bit, but I'm very, very grateful like, for the way it worked. But at the same time, it kind of got in the way of other things, you know? Like
Sure.
if I was focused on a show or I was like deep in a show or trying to get into another theater company to work with, like other things in my life kind of took a back seat, including sometimes like times with friends and family, you know?
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of that is kind of mirrored in the show, you know? And there's a song in there called the Shmuel Song, which is, it's a metaphor. It's a short story Jamie wrote for Kathy to give her some confidence, you know, for I think an upcoming round of auditions, you know? And like she's having a rough day. He's trying to help her believe in herself a little more, you know? He sings her this song, you know? And whether it works or not, who knows? You know,
Right.
I think near the end she starts to warm up to it a little bit, you know. But it's a beautiful song. It's very special. There's a line at the end of the song. It's "I could be in love with someone like you," I think, or some. Have I mentioned today how lucky I am to be in love with you? I think it is, which is not that different than the line he sings at the end of like his first song. "I could be in love with someone like you," and it comes back at the end, but like in a different time and place in the relationship.
Right.
But I've always loved that song because it shows that yes, he cheated on her, like, and that's wrong, you know. It shows his side a little bit that he's a human. He's trying to help her out, you know.
Right.
And he does that a lot
Yeah.
throughout the show, you know, whether or not it makes the cut, you know, like he does that a lot, and like he probably feels a bit defeated, you know, if he feels like he's not being successful because like he has a successful career as a writer. He's used to things going well. He's used to being able to do whatever he can. And even if it's a nobody's fault situation, so to speak, he can't quite do this, can't quite give her the confidence like she wants or needs, you know. He might be taking it as a personal, like, you know, defeat, so to speak,
Right.
which may have explained his frustration somewhat, you know.
Yeah.
Conversely, Kathy, a lot of her songs, if you listen to like the way they're sung, you know, I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
The number of times the word "I" appears in the songs. I'm still hurting.
I'm still hurting. I can do better than that.
Yep.
Yep.
I can do better than that. I'm a part of that. Yep. Yep. See, I'm smiling. Yep.
Thought about that.
And if you look at
Yeah.
it chronologically, like in reverse, like I'm still hurting, like you could get the impression or like walk away thinking in her mind it's all about her. You know, like what do I feel? You know?
Right.
Like, does his success actually matter to her?
Right.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You know, and that's kind of partially why they're not really seeing eye to eye because like maybe he feels she doesn't appreciate his success as much as she should as his partner. Maybe he gets sick of like having like opening release parties for his books and not seeing her there, you know?
Sure.
Possibly. And conversely, she's, I'm sure, sick of not seeing him at her show at Summerstock, you know?
Right.
Because he's at yet another party. You
right.
know? So both sides. You
yeah.
know? And do I condone like how it ended? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. However, the young 20-somethings and therapy was not normalized as much in the early 2000s as it is now. And
right.
had both of them been in therapy and like been a little less egocentric, a little more self-reflective and a little more vulnerable and willing to do better, honestly,
yeah.
you know, or able to do better, maybe they couldn't.
Right.
I don't know.
Maybe this was the way it was always meant to play out.
Yeah, it's two young 20-something creatives trying to do the impossible
right.
in the wrong location at the wrong time with the wrong careers for that type of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So JRB does a really great job of like, you know, showing all sides, showing the humanistic side of it, that none of us are perfect, you know?
Yeah.
And even if you don't condone something, maybe you can see why someone did it given their unique situation, you know, and what's going on in their head. So like, yeah. And like I was saying with like the references to you know, if you look at them in order, either from like halfway through the show back to the beginning, so chronologically accurate, but show backwards, or show accurate, but chronologically backwards, you know, you see the progression of her mindset, you know?
Yeah.
And then later on in the show, you see his, you know, from the second they get married, like he starts having his doubts, you know, and he's a young 20-something male, you know?
Right.
So
right.
serial monogamist, if you will, you know, because
sure.
if you listen at the end of Nobody Needs to Know, maybe I could be in love with someone like you. That's the same darn line he's saying to Kathy 5 years earlier.
Right.
Not cool.
Right.
You know? Not cool, you know?
Yeah.
But who knows, maybe like as a 27-year-old instead of a 22-year-old, maybe the relationship with his publisher will last more than 5 years, or maybe it won't. Maybe he hasn't learned.
Yeah.
Either way, it's fascinating. And there's one song he sings, probably my favorite song in the whole show, If I Didn't Believe in You. Mm-hmm. Yep. Which is where he's about to go out to a party. He wants her to come with him, and she's not having it, you know? And it's a heartbreaker. I won't say anything more on it, but like, it's him laying it all out, you know? And could he have done it better? Absolutely.
Right.
Can you see where he's coming from? Yes. Also. And same thing on See I'm Smiling in her case, if you flip it, you know? Like, could she have spoken it a little differently? Maybe. But did he need to hear it? Absolutely. You know? And this is her catharsis, you know? She lets it all out. Like, there's a reason, like, it cycles through, like, 4 different key signatures at the end because it's building intensity. It goes up a third, then it goes up another third. And then, because it builds on itself, it's the same pattern repeating, but in a different key. And her pitch climbs correspondingly, which builds to, I think she drops an F-bomb, I think, in it near the end. And if you watch the movie version, that's the only F-bomb that survived the cut, so they could get that PG-13 rating.
Oh, yeah, you just get one.
Yep, you get one, and that one. I still remember. 2015, I was teaching a musical theater analysis elective at my school district that I used to work at.
Yeah.
We were doing a unit on the last 5 years, and a student sings See I'm Smiling, and singing it for the class for the first time. You know, it's a public school, and then the F-bomb's coming up. I'm thinking, like, is she going to say it? Is she not going to say it, you know? She did it.
Oh, wow.
And then we talked about afterwards, like, you know, like, I'm glad she did it because, like, it helped her feel kind of more in the moment as to what Kathy was feeling. Like, to get to that point, like, to drop an F-bomb in a public school classroom in front of your classmates, like, you must be really feeling it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it was there intentionally, you know? He could have changed the word. He didn't.
Sure.
Because that was the peak of her frustration.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. This release has to come out. Yeah.
It has to, you know, and what comes after it, you know, maybe she didn't know what would come after it at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jeremy just does a very good job of like showing the human condition, showing all sides of things, you know?
Yeah.
Makes it hard to like, I mean, yes, I'm going to judge the characters. They're both flawed.
Of course.
I don't really like either of them all that much, to be honest with you, you know? If it was 2025 and they had, like I said, gone to therapy, I'd probably like them a bit more, you know? Because I think at the core, they have a lot of good qualities. I mean, they found each other.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he makes you think.
Yeah.
And that's important, you know, because empathy is something I think we could use a lot more of in this world. It's kind of lacking quite a bit, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying tolerate things that are inexcusable by any stretch.
Right.
But if you know the why, it's a lot easier to get to the how.
Yeah, if we all just took 5 extra minutes
Yes.
and thought about, just try to understand the other side's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
Yes, because I mean, no two people's lived experiences are the same.
Right.
And that's a hill I'll die on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so important.
Yeah. No, I love shows that are like morally gray characters because that's what humans are,
Correct.
right? There's no...
None of us are perfect.
No straight heroes, and there's very few straight villains in the world, right? So shows that don't necessarily have like a moral, besides go to therapy and
but go to therapy and maybe like, you know, if you're going to go after a monogamous relationship, don't do it while you're in your early 20s in the city trying to pursue a career that you're passionate about and not willing to compromise on.
You can always get married later.
Yes.
Just feel it out. Yeah.
Or all the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? But yes.
Well,
I love talking about that show.
Yeah, great show.
It's so cool.
Great pick. Absolutely. I haven't seen the movie with Jeremy Jordan and Anna Kendrick. Do you recommend it?
Yes, I do. And I have some thoughts.
Okay.
It came out in 2014, and I actually saw it in New York when it came out, and JRB did a talkback afterwards.
Oh, very cool.
With the director of the movie. I forget who that was. But But, yeah, so it's a little different. Like, the play was designed to be done in someone's living room, which is why there's no drum kit. You know, it's small orchestration. You could do it wherever. The movie, obviously, is not. That's not the case.
Right.
So they added drums.
Okay.
They had each other in each other's scenes. If you look at the play, like it's one character at a time, really, except the wedding.
Right.
And if another one's on stage, it's in a different timeline, however many, 5 minus however many years they're into it at that point.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Like, see him smiling in the play. Like, she sings the song, she's near the end of things. It cuts right to him being on the phone with an agent about to sign a book deal early on. He's talking about moving in with Kathy, you know?
Okay.
In the movie, they're in each other's scenes. Because, like, that's what works better on a screen instead of a stage.
Right.
But it's worth seeing.
Okay.
Keep some tissues handy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Last 5 years movie. All
Yes.
right. So my show also moves backwards.
Amazing.
Which is why I picked this theme. So my show is Merrily We Roll Along, which was written by, the book is by George Firth, which is based on a play of the same name by George S. Kaufman and Moss Hart.
Okay.
Music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim.
Love it.
Who we love, and who was a mentor of Jason Robert Brown as well. The original production was directed by Hal Prince. It premiered November 16th, 1981, and closed November 28th, the same month. Since then, there's been several off-Broadway and London productions, most notably the 2023 Broadway revival, which won Best Revival. Throughout the years, so many people have appeared in this show, including Jason Alexander, John Rubinstein, Chip Zien, Maren Mazzi, Victor Garber, Raul Esparza, Emily Skinner, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Celia Keenan-Bolger, Elizabeth Stanley, Betsy Wolfe, Wayne Brady, Donna Vivino, and of course Jonathan Groff, Daniel Radcliffe, and Lindsay Mendez, who are just in the revival. So the one-sentence synopsis of this is, time rolls backwards for film producer Franklin Shepard, playwright Charlie Kringus, and author Mary Flynn as they reflect on their roller coaster friendship over the course of 20 years. So they don't have competing timelines like Jamie and Kathy do. We all move backwards. But yeah. And also a show that features piano. I think one of the best overtures in
That
musical
overture.
theater
Can I
history.
nerd out for a second?
Please.
Okay. I saw the Broadway Big Band in New York City in 54 Below. This was probably 9 years ago.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's still a thing, but it was like a big band, like a jazz band, full horn section, full rhythm section. The bassist was the band leader.
Okay.
And they would do like Broadway tunes and they'd adapt them to big band. They played the Merrily Overture. Just, holy crap.
Oh, man.
And then I
That's
also,
so good.
and this past month, actually a couple weeks ago, I went down to New York City. I have a sister who lives down there, and she lives there with her husband and their 2 kids. And I went down to visit them, and I went to TKTS and got a day of ticket to Old Friends, which is like Sondheim musical review. That it's probably going to be closed by the time that this airs, unfortunately. But it's a huge band. It's what's her name? I'm so bad with names.
Bernadette Peters.
Thank
in
you.
it.
Her.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, she led the cast, and they did just a bunch of Sondheim songs, and they opened Act 2 with the Merrily Overture.
Oh, great!
And selfishly, that's a bucket list drum part for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so cool. He goes nuts.
It's so good. Yeah,
and just like, it's so good. I wish I was at a drum set right now.
I know, and it's like sort of rare for Sondheim to do an overture too. And this one just the drums go so hard in it, and the horns go crazy,
and then but when it slows down, like when they go into like Good Thing Going or Going Gone, whatever you want to call it, like the trumpet takes the melody, and then the drums come in on a power ballad groove, which again, not really a Sondheim thing,
right?
But it works.
Yeah.
Also, there's a YouTube video of JRB, I think, introducing Sondheim for some award that he's getting like a decade or 2 ago. JRB walks out, he starts playing Good Thing Going, and he plays like the 3 different chord progressions in each of the 3 verses and talks about how Steve Sondheim intentionally went to a different chord after the first chord each time to help move the story forward, kind of like Jerry B does, because like one was his mentor, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But it's just fascinating because
Yeah.
like Sondheim does not waste a note.
No, absolutely not. Everything is there for a reason.
Yes, and
yeah.
and if you dig through it, it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I went on a tangent.
No, please. I love it so much.
Yeah,
so,
but yeah, the overture, it's so good.
Yeah, the music of Merrily is amazing. So,
Yes.
okay, so the story. I have the summary of the current version of Merrily. It was revised
Yes.
several times. So this is the new version.
Yep.
So we start in 1977. Frank, who is a composer turned film producer, has this opening night party for one of his movies. Only one of his friends is there. Only Mary is there, and they sort of talk about Charlie, and he sours to it.
Yeah.
So Mary's very like bitter at this point. I think this is the line where someone says, "Oh, what do you do?" And she says, "I drink." And they said, "No, really." And she says, "I really drink." So that's where she is in her life. And this party sort of just goes super overboard. And at one point, Frank's wife throws iodine in the face of Frank's mistress, and it's just like all hell breaks loose. So in the revival, in this 2023 revival, they sort of had this framing device that really brought this show together, because previously it had closed in whatever that is, 16 performances, and like has sort of been this like very famous flop. Like Sondheim had Sweeney, and then this is what opened after that. So it was like this huge anticipation, and then just closed.
And also, like, last 5 years wasn't very commercially successful early on too. It kind of got a cult following in a similar way over time, you know, among all the theater nerds, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. So this flopped, and it's sort of been like this, you know, redheaded stepchild of Sondheim until this revival. And they just did it so simply. Just Frank comes out, and he's sort of clutching this book at the top of the show. And they have the, you know, how did you get here? How did you get there from here? Motif that's going on. And then the same thing, we go through this whole experience, and at the end of the show he comes back out clutching his book again, and it's just like, this is him just like reflecting on his life, and it brings everything together. So they have this party, and then we go back to 1973. We roll back, and this is the last time that Frank and Charlie are together. So they are being interviewed in this television studio, and they're already sort of not on great terms. Mary goes back, tries to soothe Charlie. She sings Old Friends like it was. But then they find out, they go on the air, and Charlie finds out that Frank has signed a 3-picture deal and is not working on the show they said they were going to work on. So then he has a breakdown with Franklin Shepherd Inc., which is one of my favorite Sondheim songs of all time.
So fun moment about that.
Yes.
2019, Steve Sondheim's last public performance was at, I think, City Center in New York City. Jason Robert Brown was doing one of his residency concerts. And he had a special guest like once a month since, I think, 2014 when he started doing it at a club called Subculture. But he asked Steve Sondheim to be his guest for this one. So they moved it to a bigger venue. And they did a bunch of Sondheim songs all night, then brought him out to do like 3 of his songs. It was incredible. I was there. And
you were there? Oh my God.
But during Franklin Shepherd Inc., which would open the show, Lin-Manuel Miranda walks out mid-show and starts singing one of the parts. Nobody knew.
No way.
Everyone lost their minds.
Oh my God. And 2019,
so
that was
cool.
post-Hamilton, so that's like, he's a big deal.
It was, and then like, it was so crazy. That show is actually on like streaming services as a live album now, so worth checking out. Yeah.
Definitely.
So good.
I love that song so much. It's just like, it like blends together. He has like his like typewriter parts that goes through, and the piano parts, and he just has this huge outburst at the end where he's like, call him anywhere, any bank, USA. He's just so mad that he's taking the money after all this.
And Sondheim's so good at like using rhythm to illustrate like human emotion.
Yes.
Like, for example, I'm going to go to another show for a second. Into the Woods.
Yes.
Your Fault. Running 16th notes. Nobody can get a word in edgewise because everyone's so fired up. Not that different than this. You know? Yeah.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But it builds. He's so good at that.
So good.
Anyway, nerd fest over.
Love it.
Carry on.
No, I also love, my day job is I deal with a lot of contracts. I read contracts for proctors all day long. And so I have this lyric taped to the bottom of my monitor where it says, generally, which comes first, the words or the music? And Charlie says, generally, the contract. So that reminds me that even though I'm doing boring paperwork, it's part of the artistic process.
Absolutely.
People got to get paid. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's sort of, this is how Charlie and Frank's relationship ends. This happens, and he has this very public, this is my first appearance on TV and my last. He has that thing there. So then we roll back again to 1968. Frank has just gotten divorced, which we'll see later. He's moving into his new apartment. His son is there, and Mary and Charlie are there to sort of help welcome him welcome him into his new apartment. This is where they sing the full version of Old Friends, which is such a wonderful song. And he also meets, he sort of starts getting involved with Gussie, who is someone who we learn more about later, because that's how the show goes. She's like a big star, and she and married, I believe, at the time, and then she and Frank start getting involved there. And then from there we roll back 2 more years to 1966. We see Frank getting divorced. They have this, his ex-wife's name is Beth. She knows, okay, I got the order wrong, but she knows that Gussie and Frank have been involved, and she sings "Not a Day Goes By," which is another incredible Sondheim song. And Bernadette Peters does sing it a lot, like in concert and stuff. Now, I believe in the Sondheim's 80th birthday concert with the red dresses, that's Bernadette's song of choice.
Speaking of the red dresses, so after I saw Old Friends a couple weeks ago, I went to 54 Below. I saw a Sondheim Unplugged concert, which is a series they do down there. It's going to be running for like another year, I think.
Where I gotta check
it's
that
a bunch
out.
of singers, oftentimes like cast members from Sondheim shows, and just a piano player. So they strip it down to the basics. And this one, like, everyone was in a red dress, essentially, and they kind of recreated that moment from the.
I love that.
It was so good. And I think. I feel like Not a Day Goes By was on the set list.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, so good.
So Frank and Beth are getting divorced, and Mary and Charlie sing the song to Frank called "Now You Know," and which is another great song. And it's just like, life sucks. This is how it works. You gotta pick yourself up and move on. And Mary also has a moment where she confesses her love to Frank at the end of that song. And so then Act 2, we just keep moving back, right? We see Frank and Charlie's first Broadway show. They sing "It's a Hit." We see Frank and Beth fall in love. They sing this they're like this little acting troupe in like a small bar. They sing the song about the Kennedy family and like how they're all connected. So cool. And Mary has a reprise of "Not a Day Goes By," where it's like, it's so interesting how, like, when that song is first introduced, it's sung by Beth, who we're seeing it for the first time at that point. And then it's like, if you look at it from the other perspective, it's like Mary sang it first because she's in love with Frank, and now Beth is singing it at their divorce, and it's like so heartbreaking. But we go back to where Frank, Mary, and Charlie are first starting out, and they sang "Opening Doors," which Sondheim has said was like his only autobiographical song that he wrote, when it was like him and Mary Rogers trying to make it in New York too, which is so sweet. And then it ends when they sort of first meet for the first time. They're on the roof of an apartment building, and they're watching, see if Sputnik is going to come back, and they sing "Our Time."
I feel amazing. Like I don't think I did it, but I almost opened the original SLOC Sings show with that song.
Really?
Yeah, I think I did. I did "Hope" by Jason Robert Brown instead.
Oh, okay.
But it was a contender. I love that song.
Yeah, there are so many, like, the more I revisit Merrily, the more I can't believe it wasn't a hit until now.
Right.
And, like, maybe it was the way it was presented, because the original cast was, like, very young people, like teenagers, if not just young adults. Yeah. And they all had, like, shirts that said, like, "The Friend" on it, or like sort of weird costumes. I don't know, but
And also, like, I think looking back historically, what year did it come out, did you say?
81.
Okay, so that was still fairly early, like, as far as like rules being broken in the theater, as far as like songwriting, like, I mean, Rodgers and Hammerstein weren't that long before that, you know? And I love them, but it's not the same as like a Sondheim or a JRB, you know. Kind of the songs are there, you know. But do they necessarily drive the story forward? Not always, you know. They do just as well as jazz standards, but like, were audiences necessarily like ready for like songs that were so tightly integrated to the show and like crunchy harmonically, you know? Right. So I wonder if like we just weren't as ready for it as maybe we should have been back then.
That's very fair. And like I said, after the hype of Sweeney, people were probably expecting another like epic tale like that, and they just went in a different direction. And like,
if you're used to like basically diatonic, which means like chords that are like in the same progression, I'm going to nerd out again for a second.
Please.
Okay. So I think of like harmonies and chord progressions like pizza. Okay. If you want a cheese pizza, like very comforting, like what Kevin orders on Home Alone, because he knows what he's getting. Like,
a lovely cheese pizza just for me.
Yes, correct. And stay within the key signature, you know, maybe don't change keys too many times, you know, don't do anything unexpected. That's Rodgers and Hammerstein, you know, they're great at that.
Right.
if you want some like pepperoni or sausage, throw a key change or two in there. Throw like a sharp or a flat where you don't expect it. Do a sequence of a melodic line, and then that was like maybe like Leonard Bernstein,
Okay.
Or maybe he took it a little farther, but like we started seeing a bit of that, around then. And if you want like just dump a bottle of Frank's hot sauce on a pizza, that's Sondheim, because you don't expect what you're getting. It's not always comforting. It points a mirror on everything,
Right.
and it's jarring, but at the same time, if you like it, that type of thing,
Right.
it's so good.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then Jason Robert Brown like kind of blends all of it,
Yeah.
these days, because he was influenced by all of them. It's
Absolutely.
like hot sauce mixed with ranch. You take a little bit of the bite out of it, but it still like gives you something you don't expect.
Yeah, and that's what I love about just sort of, at least in musical theater, how that's going, right? Like Sondheim was mentored by Oscar Hammerstein, and then Jason Robert Brown's mentored by, and it's just like,
and they all they learned the rules of the time, and then they chose when to break them when it made
Exactly.
sense to. And Sondheim was so good at that.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to see whoever is learning from Jason Robert Brown and Pascal
Manuel
Paul and all
Miranda,
them now. Yeah,
Or
right.
Or some of the up and coming ones now. And
Exactly.
I'm so excited. Like,
Yeah, and everyone just keeps
I
building.
mean, we're already seeing it, like the electronic instruments in musicals now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who would have thought like 30 years ago like that would be as much of a thing?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Etc.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, thank you so much.
Thank
for being
you.
Here
This
today.
was so cool.
Before we leave, this episode's going to come out on Father's Day weekend.
Amazing.
So will you leave us with some dad jokes, please?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I got a few. Okay, I teach middle school band, so like I have to. First one. All right. How do you fix a broken tuba?
How do you fix a broken tuba? I don't know. How do you fix a broken tuba?
With a tube of glue. Also, what do you call a cow that eats all your grass?
Lawn mower?
Yes.
Yes!
Very good. Very excellent. I love it. And I'm trying to think. I got another one.
I got a joke I learned from
Okay.
Dan.
Amazing. Let's hear it.
How do you stop charging bulls?
There's 3 ways. Actually, there's only 2. The first one is you take away their credit cards.
That's the answer I knew. Yeah.
Yep. You unplug them.
Oh, unplug them.
And if they're a herd of charging lions, you can also just Mufasa. And also, like, as I like to remind the audience at my school concerts, like, you can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish unless you adjust the scales. That was a little fishy.
That's perfect. Dan,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was a
This was
blast.
awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yay. Two Show Day is hosted by me, Diana Shabai Booker. Cover art is with contributions from Ivy McGurran. If you'd like to get in contact with us, please visit our link tree at linktr.ee/2showday.